Everything you need to know about the 2020 COVID-19 economic crisis. You probably have questions about the recent economic downturn. We'll try to answer them. With everything going on in the world today, it can be a challenge to keep up with all the news coming in at a lightning-fast pace. Dominating the headlines is the 2019 novel coronavirus COVID-19. The deadly infection was first reported in Wuhan, China, in December of 2019, and has since been declared a global pandemic. The virus has spread to at least 146 countries and territories on 6 continents. It's easy, with everything happening, to find yourself focusing on the small things that have suddenly become so important. How do I protect myself and my family? Practicing social distancing and top-notch hand-washing technique is crucial right now. The effect of the coronavirus pandemic has heavily impacted many healthcare systems around the world, with some, like Italy, almost on the verge of collapse. It has affected the global economy, causing a massive downturn and creating the possibility of a recession, the ripples of which will be felt long after the novel coronavirus recedes. In these trying times, it may be easier to think, who cares about Wall Street? But the global economy isn't just about stock prices and the Dow Jones. It can make and signal a difference in all of our lives. That's why today we'll be answering the biggest questions about the economic side of this global crisis, for investors and non-investors alike. What is happening? The global economy is experiencing massive volatility, with macroeconomic risk indicators like copper, gold and global currencies seeing large and sudden dips in value. The US and European stock markets have been hit hard, largely because of uncertainty about the future, compounded by a lack of confidence in government responses to the virus. The US, in particular, has seen stocks plummet at a rate rarely seen. On Thursday, March 12th, the US Dow dropped the most it has in a single day since 1987's Black Monday, a major economic crash for the United States. The market has even been put on pause at times during the past few weeks to prevent further losses. Despite a minor upswing after the initial precipitous fall, the markets are still looking pretty weak. We'll have to wait and see what comes next. This is a crisis that is currently unfolding before our eyes, so we've done our best to get up-to-the-minute information, but things are changing quickly. Nonetheless, the aim is to give you a good overview of what you need to know, no matter what happens in the coming days and months. Why is this happening? At the heart of it, the crisis is about the effect of the coronavirus on different business sectors: tourism, hospitality, airlines, restaurants, and the entertainment industry. Anything that requires people to gather for the business to make money are already being hit hard by this crisis and will continue to suffer as long as the problem remains. The reality is that, with major shutdowns of cities and countries across the globe, almost every industry will likely be affected in the long run. Events are being cancelled, global supply chains have been interrupted, and many of the ways that companies and individuals make money are being turned on their heads. Conservative estimates say that it'll take 6 months for the economy to recover, with some industries taking much longer to return to normal. And that's assuming the pandemic is brought under control and doesn't resurge in the fall, which is, historically speaking, possible and even likely. Grocery stores and other markets that sell supplies for the home have seen a surge in buying, resulting in higher stock prices. Things like Lysol wipes, hand sanitizers, and especially toilet paper are more valuable than gold in many places at present. But beyond companies making things that directly help keep people safe or alive, things are looking bad for the average retailer. One sector that's seen growth is the medical and vaccine research industry. It's likely those stocks will stay high for now, just as stock in cruise ship companies will necessarily sink. Pun intended. The effects of these changes ripple outward to other industries, not just cruise companies or airlines. Reduced manufacturing and a wide variety of other factors have led to big drops in oil prices, which then affect the oil industry globally, and we'll get to the oil collapse in a minute. Why does it matter? There will be an economic slowdown no matter what. What people are trying to figure out right now is how to minimize the damage done. In a practical sense, if no one buys airline tickets, they will lose money and have to lay off employees. This is already happening with British Airways, among others. The big picture is this: if everyone makes less money, everyone spends less money, and you have a large-scale economic slowdown which affects all industries. A rapid rise in unemployment can cause a recession, and that may be what we're looking at if industries like travel and tourism don't pick back up. A recession also means changing your spending habits. On average, in a recession, people tend to spend less money and buy necessities instead of luxury items. When a recession hits one country harder than another, that can change the exchange rate for their currency, making some goods and travel more or less affordable. So it's good to keep track of what's happening on a global scale, even if you're not invested in the stock market. And if you are, we'll talk about how best to deal with this situation shortly. First, let's address oil. You've heard about an oil collapse. What's going on? In March, oil had its worst single week since the 2008 financial crisis, reaching its lowest prices since 2016. This is, in part, because of coronavirus-related volatility, but was equally caused by a bidding war between Russia and Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Both Russia and, jointly, the UAE and Saudi Arabia committed to increased production, meaning supply went up, and at the same time demand dropped thanks to reduced travel and manufacturing. As with any time that supply goes up and demand falls, prices dropped. That's why the price of oil dropped dramatically. Prices will likely recover in the long term, but in the short term, the drop has significant effects on smaller nations whose economies center on oil, like Nigeria. It also doesn't help the already tumultuous situation in the US, which exports about 35% of the world's oil. What's going on with the dollar exchange rate on the world market? How is the US dollar doing? The dollar had a major dip on March 9th, but has largely stayed steady in terms of the DXY. It dipped as low as it had been in a year, but it was down around the same point in March 2019, and there was no global pandemic then. At last check, it's actually above where it has been in years, but in a market this volatile, those gains may or may not hold. The reality is, barring something unbelievable happening, the US dollar should stay solid in the long term, despite any present volatility. And the same applies to most other world currencies. What about the changes in the cryptocurrency market? Most of the major cryptocurrencies have seen a major crash this year, with Bitcoin taking a 48% loss in a single day. But why? They're not necessarily tied to anything that would be affected by the virus, but at the same time, there wasn't an immediately evident, logical cryptocurrency-related reason either. Most financial news sites chalked it up to an overall trend in selling off equities because of the plummet. However, one theory, mentioned by cryptocurrency experts on Forbes, suggests that the reason is almost completely separate from the COVID-19 related volatility. Some believe that the crash for cryptocurrencies began when Ponzi scheme Plus token, which has recently swept through Korea and China and has stolen roughly $2 billion worth of cryptocurrencies, in particular Bitcoin, moved a large quantity of Bitcoin into mixers and sold that Bitcoin off, flooding the market and causing Bitcoin to crash. Then, with investors seeing Bitcoin crashing, other cryptocurrencies started to crash, thanks to the added panic of the unstable global markets. If the experts are right, this is simply part of how Plus token does business. They'll likely save up Bitcoin again, then sell it off when it's high again in future. That would also mean that the crash likely won't be a long-term trend for cryptocurrencies. So if you have Bitcoin, the wise move would be to just keep holding onto it. What's going to happen to the markets next? What else will be affected? Honestly, no one knows. It depends on a wide variety of factors. How hard the virus hits the different countries where it is currently spreading. How quickly and successfully the world's governments apply measures to shore up their people and economies. How long this goes on. Chances are that we will see things get worse before this is over, both health-wise and economically. Many countries will likely see a recession lasting past the end of the panic. But the good news is that, eventually, things will return to normal. The world must wait and see. What's the worst that could happen? There is a possibility, but by no means a certainty, that this downturn will transform into a global economic crisis. If so, it would likely start in Italy, which was the first nation to go on total countrywide lockdown and has seen its economy grind to a halt. Italy, for the record, is the world's 8th largest economy. That said, all of the top 10 largest economies in the world are currently grappling with widespread coronavirus. Right now, world leaders have been rolling out different plans to bolster world banks to avoid a complete meltdown. But if Italian banks alone were to default, it could force a chain reaction of big problems for the world. Don't get scared, but bank closures would mean runs on banks where people try to withdraw their money before the bank closes and they have no money. Think It's a Wonderful Life. Now live in that movie for a second, deep breath. That's nice. It'll be okay. People got through the Great Depression, and we're going to work together as a global society to avoid anything like that. The primary reason we're seeing added volatility is more that people are afraid. No one knows which sectors will be hit hardest long term, and the bailout packages being offered by different governments don't seem to have been coordinated. Different countries are coming up with plans to keep us all from losing everything, but as they work out the details, it's a bit chaotic. But they're working on it. What should the government be doing? The absolute priority has to be containing and treating the virus. In terms of the economic side of things, they should be making sure everyone can get tested at little or no cost. This is economically important because widespread testing is going to tell us who has the virus and who doesn't, which in the long run will help countries stop the spread of disease. Knowing these numbers lessens the threat, not just to the population, but to the economy as well. However, not everyone will be able to get the test. Due to test shortages in some countries, experts are telling people that, if they don't have symptoms, they should not be tested. This leaves more testing kits for those who are ill and absolutely need to be tested, and reduces strain on testing facilities. Plus, healthy people limiting the contact with others will help prevent them from getting sick, so going to get tested would be ill-advised. That said, mass testing, as has been done in Korea, Canada, and Iceland, is the best way to identify even asymptomatic carriers and contain the spread in the longer term. However, it may not be possible for larger or poorer districts, at least not in the near future. Listen to the WHO, the CDC, and your government health department's advice to know what the correct course of action is for you. Some believe that governments should be offering bailouts and no-interest loans to big banks and small businesses to help them stay afloat and reduce individual costs, while others have advocated for giving money directly to individuals. Regardless, the goal is to make it possible for sick people to stay home while allowing those with financial instability to get the care they need so they can get well and avoid spreading the virus further. What can I do about it? Do your best to heed government warnings. Stay inside if and when you're told to stay inside. Buy things you need at a reasonable pace. And consider investing in a bidet, just in case people keep buying up all the toilet paper. Economically speaking, don't sell off your stocks. Hang tight. In fact, consider taking advantage of this opportunity to buy while things are low. You'll be helping your economy and your future bank account. Statistically speaking, over the long term, markets rise. Even after a sharp downturn, they almost always eventually rise again and exceed expectations. If you want to prepare yourself financially in a more immediate way, put away a portion of your money to make sure you can cover any rent and expenses, just in case you're faced with unemployment due to the economic slowdown. Now may not be the time to make big, unnecessary purchases. Again, just in case. You might want to prepare for your portfolio to take a temporary hit. If interest rates go down, think about taking the opportunity to refinance any debt you have. At this point, if you don't have a nest egg, you may not have much time to build one. Starting to exercise an abundance of caution now could help you be prepared for the long-term effects of this downturn, and you'll be ready for the next financial crisis. Those are the most important things you need to know about the economic crisis related to the novel coronavirus right now. But before we finish, we want to take the time to go over some important things that will help keep you and your loved ones safe. How do I protect myself and my family? It can't be said too often to wash your hands. Wash them well with soap and the hottest water you can handle for at least 1 minute. Not sure exactly what a good hand wash looks like? We'll put a link to a video from the World Health Organization on how to properly wash your hands in the description for you. Another good habit to get into is not touching your face. Don't touch your face if you haven't washed your hands lately. If you're in an area where the virus is active, limit all but essential social contact. Wipe down frequently used surfaces, and prepare your home for the possibility that you'll be in it a lot for at least the next month or so. Long-term food supplies aren't strictly necessary yet in many parts of the world, but it's worth acting like you might end up on a 2-week quarantine. Be smart and isolate anyone who's sick. Monitor yourself and your family members for any sign of illness, and especially fever. Fever and respiratory symptoms are the most common signs of the novel coronavirus. Stick to FaceTiming with friends and family members, even if you feel healthy. Not everyone who gets the disease will be symptomatic. The odds are good that you'll be fine in the long run, but there are no guarantees, and it can be a very serious illness. If you start having issues with your lungs or your breathing, call the appropriate medical professionals and get help right away. Should I be working from home? Yes, unless you perform an essential service, that means you absolutely have to physically go to work. Those of us who can stay home should, in order to lower the risk to the people who don't have the choice. A lot of companies have been forced to create a system for their employees to work at home. If your company doesn't have this option, you could also look online and see if there are companies out there that suddenly need people to work online for them. And what about masks? Many health experts have said that wearing a mask will not protect you from the virus. In fact, there is only one type of mask with designation N95 that can stop airborne droplets from entering your nose and mouth. N95 respirators provide a much higher degree of protection as opposed to surgical masks, which doctors and nurses desperately need. This means to stop buying masks. And while you're at it, other people need toilet paper too, so try to go easy. It's pneumonia, not dysentery. Masks should only be worn if you must be close to a large group of people. If someone sneezes, those droplets can travel 6 feet or more. People who are infected with COVID-19 should always wear a mask if they are around people. But if you are infected, you should not go outside at all. You should remain isolated and contact your doctor or emergency services as needed. Listen, this is a scary time with a lot of uncertainty. It's okay to feel unsure and afraid, but in the end, there's only so much you can do. Take this seriously. Hunker down in your home, hunker down with your finances, and prepare yourself to weather the coming storm. This isn't a species-ending event. It's a bad respiratory illness. It's sweeping the globe, but it can be defeated. Eventually, there will be treatments and there will be a vaccine. The USA has been testing a number of possible drugs to see if they can help treat the virus until a vaccine is found. Not only that, but summer is on the way and hot weather will almost certainly help stop the spread. Hang tight, good friends, and do your best to stay well. The market will recover eventually, and so will we. Make sure to subscribe so that you won't miss out on any new information in the future. Thanks for watching.